Hi, my name is Tyree Simon, news writer for SEScoops, and I have the pleasure of interviewing this lovely woman, a fellow journalist like myself, and she is the leader and creator of the Wrestling Winedown brand. Lo, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Now, can I ask a question just off the bat? Are you from Las Vegas?
I am born and raised.
Born and raised in Las Vegas. How is that like?
Yes. A lot of people think that it's just the strip, but there are areas around. It's just like any other town, like Chicago or New York. We have other stuff to do. It's very hot in the summer, so it's triple digits right now. But other than
Jeez.
that, I love it here. My family's here, my friends are here, so it's great.
You said triple digits. So, like, what is the weather today?
I haven't looked at the weather. I haven't gone outside yet, but I
Uh,
know yesterday it was like 105.
oh, nice.
We've had 115 before. We've had 120. It gets really hot. So I always tell people that come for like wrestling shows, tequila is not water. You need to drink water.
Yeah, I'm tapping out at 105. I'll tap out at 80 to be honest with you, but 105 is crazy.
Yes, it is very crazy.
But I definitely appreciate you for taking time and sitting down with me. I know you have a lot of other stuff you're doing right now, another project we're going to get into in a second. So I definitely am honored to have you on here and speak to me.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here with you.
So let's start right away with just how the brand began. So, you started this in, I believe, in 2019, right?
I did. So I was still in college and I started the podcast with a close friend of mine who was also in the journalism department. One night I was on Twitter and I saw she was tweeting about wrestling, and
Mm.
I had no idea that she liked wrestling. We were friends, but we had never reached that point of talking about wrestling. And I had asked her, I said, "You like wrestling?" And she's like, "Oh, yeah, I watch it every week." And it kind of kept in the back of my head. We really would go kind of like back and forth and talk about little things that happened on Raw or NXT, but nothing to the extent of a podcast. And she really was into podcasts at the time. And she was like, "Hey, what if we started a podcast about wrestling?" And I started looking, doing some research, and I noticed it was mostly men doing wrestling podcasts. So there wasn't a lot of female options out there. And that was one striving reason as to why we started it, was because we wanted to be like, have that girl talk, be the end of the week, like girlfriend chat about professional wrestling.
Right.
So we started thinking, and I'm like, we need to incorporate something else. My friend loves beer. And I was like, I'm not really a beer drinker. Like, I don't know about that. And
Right.
I was like, what about wine? And then I just thought of it off the top of my head. I still have the text message where all caps, Wrestling Winedown.
Mm.
And just from there, we just kind of started it. And she stepped away. She moved to Seattle. She has a podcast now on her own that's not wrestling related. And,
Right.
I'm still running Wrestling Winedown. And I'm very lucky that I've been able to work with amazing individuals that men and women who love professional wrestling, whether they're inside the ring or outside of the ring.
No, definitely, definitely. And shout out to her as well. And
Yes.
yeah, you know the name of the podcast she does now?
She actually has a business. It's called Espresso Podcast Production. We're actually doing
Oh,
a
okay.
joint live on Thursday where we're calling it a one night only thing, where we kind of like catch up and we tell people about her brand, and then we kind of go into, what Wrestling Wine now has been up to. So she has her own company. She helps people with like their podcast, but she also has a podcast of her own where she talks to different business owners and podcast creators who, are giving tips and tricks and stuff like that. So it's really neat.
Yes, definitely tune in on June 16th, right?
Yes.
June 16th, just June 16th. That's be really, really interesting. And I'm interested to see how you guys like now coming back together and kind of talking about just how life has been since she's moved away and now what you're doing, which is become successful.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
And where did you go to college at?
I went to UNLV, the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. I majored in journalism and media studies, and not a lot of people know, but I minored in couples and family therapy.
Oh, okay. Okay. You want to be a psychologist or
No. When I first went into college, I was kind of just looking to see what minor I wanted. At first, I was thinking about doing criminal justice because I
yeah.
really like law and order and stuff like that. But then I found marriage and family therapy, or couples and family therapy, and I was like, that's really interesting. But no, I really wouldn't want to incorporate that into my career. I'm definitely like all the way journalism and media studies. Journalism holds a special place in my heart. I love, podcasting, audio production, being in front of the camera, being behind the camera. So that's definitely where my interest falls.
Definitely. One of the things I found interesting about Wrestling Winedown is that it is so different than what you usually hear from other wrestling related podcasts or content creators out right now. Like a lot of what you do, yes, you do talk about, sometimes weekly, just on certain topics that come up in wrestling. But a lot of what you do is interview based, one. And then two, you also conduct your own panels and moderate it and be able to talk about topics that wrestling fans or wrestling media may want to shy away from a little bit, or maybe uncomfortable talking about. But you talk about it in a free form aspect and able to have guests on with you and talk about it. So how did that concept of Wrestling Winedown come together?
So in the form of panels, I really started thinking about a year ago. I think I did my first panel. My first one was actually at the beginning of last year. I did a Royal Rumble panel, and that was the first one I ever did. I just wanted to test it out. I brought ladies in that were podcasters, influencers, stuff like that, to chat about the Royal Rumble. Right. And then I saw the reception. I saw how, these people meshed really well together. So I kind of just started thinking, okay, what can I do next? Then I did a Austin 316 panel, which was full of Black women. It was 4 or 5 Black women, including myself, that just discussed Stone Cold Steve Austin. Right. And they meshed well together again. And I was just really satisfied with the thoughts that they brought to the table. It was such a great experience that I was like, okay, let me just keep looking and seeing what I could do next. And the one I think that really was a good one was diversity and representation. Yes. So my diversity and representation podcast that I did with Phil Lindsay, Court Kim, and Iridian Fierro was one that I really sat down and thought about long and hard, because I knew it had to be done the right way. And I wanted to bring in people that, were of different ethnicities, but also had different walks of life to share that. Iridian is a proud Mexican woman. Philip and Court are both African American, and I really wanted to have both sides of it. And we did talk about, Indian wrestlers and Asian wrestlers and stuff like that, but I really just wanted to start there because there's a lot going on within professional wrestling, and I think a lot of people, they get scared to talk about certain stuff because they don't want people to look negatively at it, or they don't want to start an argument on the timeline. But I feel as though, as a Black woman myself, it really is important for me to talk about these issues because I have an opinion on it. And I know the people that I surround myself with do as well. And we come fact-based, we're not just saying stuff just to say stuff. But we also encourage people to share their thoughts, because it is important that even though you have knowledge, whether it's institutional knowledge or you've gained it on your own, it's important to hear back from the listeners or other fans that might have opinions or, stories about what they've been through in terms of diversity and representation, whether it be through wrestling or gear design or anything within the field.
No, definitely. I listened to it, and listening to it, I found the brilliance of it, and just one, commit to credit you to be able to moderate that, right, and to be able to hold that down and be able to kind of give, well, in basketball terms, the alley-oop to somebody to have them finish it. I thought you did a masterful job in just conducting that whole entire thing. And then two, we don't really get a lot of, we'll get some podcasters, to give them credit. Some podcasters do touch on these aspects of it, but you really went in depth and you really got down to talking about wrestlers from the past. And you brought up, and I believe in that conversation, you brought up how the older generation of WWE and how they went about Black characters and also Mexican characters, both the Mexicools.
Yes.
You brought up Crime Time. And what I find so great about it, even people that's not wrestling fans, they can kind of look at that and dissect what you're saying and kind of really analyze and see, okay, what is really going on here and why is this the case?
Right. And, I try and do that with a lot of my episodes because I think about, if someone is finding our podcast for the first time, I don't want them to go in and be like, well, what is she talking about? Or what are they talking about? So I like to give some type of background before I dive in. So whether it's a episode where we're talking about the news or we're reviewing a show or something as serious as this. I really like to lay that foundation in case there is someone that might not be keen to what has happened in WWE history. Or
Right.
I even think of like my mom who listens to the show. She's not a wrestling fan. So
Right.
I want to explain it to people as though they've never heard it before. So we're all on the same page once we enter that podcast space.
No, yeah, it's definitely something that is refreshing
Thank
in
you.
the sense of, we, again, a lot of podcasters in the podcast, and the usual model is, okay, we're going to talk about what happens this week, we're going to talk about what happens with Cody Rhodes torn pec, or we're going to talk about this and that, but you'll actually sit down and craft an entire episode around the topic, and we'll have people there that's not going to shy away from it, and you will do a masterful job, like I said. And I think that comes with, because you are a journalist, you're able to kind of craft that together and put out what I thought was an amazing product in that episode.
Thank you so much.
No, definitely, definitely. I do want to ask you though, on that topic though, what in that episode, because I thought it was, again, great. What was the response from fans regarding that? Because I know sometimes when you talk about these topics, and wrestling fans, they just want to just not think about certain situations, even though it's hard to not to. But you're able to bring it to the forefront. How do fans react when you talk about certain topics?
Sometimes I do get some interesting comments from people, and sometimes I will engage, other times I won't. With that episode specifically, I didn't get any negative feedback, and it's one of our most listened to episodes. And for myself, I know that, the more you put stuff out there, the more people will see it. So when there are issues that come up within professional wrestling in regards to diversity and representation, I like to bring that episode up again because it's an evergreen episode. So,
Yes.
Whether it's tomorrow or it's 2 years from now, the stuff that we discussed in there is still pertinent because it's history. It's our history within professional wrestling that there were issues of diversity. There were issues of representation that it could end. It could not. We never know. But to have that episode be evergreen, I feel like was very smart because, you could bring it back at any time. And unfortunately, there still is issues of diversity and representation, whether it's in AEW or WWE. And I feel like it's always important to have that out there so you can have that dialogue with people, again, to get that knowledge from them and get feedback from them on, the issues that are happening, if they agree, if they disagree. So thankfully, no rude comments with that one.
Right.
But I was ready for it if it did happen, because diversity and representation is something that, is very important to me. And I was just ready, I was ready to see the feedback that we got, but thankfully nothing negative.
No, and I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that, because sometimes from people I know in media, they'll say something on diversity and representation in either WWE or AEW or what have you, and the things that fans will say, and it's not saying all fans think this way, but certain fans in wrestling have a very, very negative view on just diversity and representation, which in 2022, again, you understand why, because you see the news every day, but it's still disheartening.
Absolutely.
But I do love, again, the brilliance behind it, because you bring up evergreen, right? Where a lot of podcasts, a lot of other content creators, they'll touch on things that are happening in the now, and like you said, you're going back and actually, hey, this is a topic, but let's also look back in the past and also bring that up, like you just said before. And what makes that so good is, you could, like you said before, you can reference that entire episode for future episodes, right? So you brought up and recently, you brought up MGF in comparison to Sasha Banks and Naomi, and how wrestling fans kind of pick and choose who they want to critique. And that goes back to the episode you did. We're going back to October, where you talk about diversity and representation, how that works into it. So I just think what you do in general is brilliant, but that episode in particular, again, people that have not watched it, October 28th, you can listen to it on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, titled Diversity and Representation. One of the best. I listen to people talk about representation and diversity. I think you did probably the best job I've heard from somebody, content creator, by
Thank
the way.
you. That really means a lot. And I really do have to credit the mod or the people that joined me in that panel because they
Right.
brought a lot to the table. You know, Phil Lindsay is someone that I look up to. He does a great job within his field. Court Kim, she is a journalist in New York. She is a newer wrestling fan, but when she does writing for different stuff outside of wrestling, she really looks at, you know, diversity and representation. And that's something she's passionate about as well. And Iridian Fierro, I've had her on the show numerous times. She's one of my best friends, but she is always so professional and eloquent with what she brings to the table. And she was able to give that perspective of a Mexican woman, you know, watching professional wrestling for as long as she does. So I really have to credit those three for really bringing in some interesting and knowledgeable talk points into that
Right.
conversation.
Yes, and in general, like again, what I find so brilliant about what you do, just as with Wrestling Winedown overall, is just the the ideas and the informative way how you do it and conduct either interviews or these panels where you leave out of the episode thinking like it stays with you. Because again, I'm listening to everything that you've done, and it's everything that you say, it stays with you, and then you go back to future episodes that you've done. And again, going back from where you began and to where you are now, you kind of just kind of lingers in every single episode you do moving towards you do today.
Yeah, and you know, I go back sometimes and I listen as well, and
Yeah,
I notice that too. There's stuff that I've done like last year or the year before, and there's still parts of the episode where I'm like, wow, like something that person said or something I said,
yeah,
it still is in the back of my head because it left an impact on me.
exactly, exactly. Again, the content you do for Wrestling Wind Down is phenomenal. Um, and that's why I'm just tuned in and tapped in with what you're doing.
Thank you. I do appreciate it.
Definitely, definitely. I will say though, so is there a team behind you? Because it seems like from the outside looking in, you're editing the audio and everything by yourself too.
It's just me. So I don't take my own photos. That's the only thing I don't do, and I don't make my logo. So my logo was created by my friend Joylyn Arnez. She's located in Las Vegas. She's a graphic designer. Went to school for it. She made the current logo we have, and she made the new one that will be coming out in a rebrand. And then my friend Fior was the one that took all of the photos. That I post now. Sometimes I'll post like selfies here and there and videos and stuff, but those are by me. I create all my graphics, I edit the episodes, I edit the videos. I pretty much do everything myself. I just time it out very well so that I'm not too overwhelmed with everything, but I enjoy doing it. You know, I went to school for this and it really helps me flex that muscle when I'm able to still do it on my own. So yeah, I enjoy it. It does seem like a lot of work. It probably
It
seems
does.
like I'm never off the internet, but
It does.
it's fun.
What, but it's crazy to think about, right? When you think about what you do, I'm guessing you also reaching out to people for interviews as well, right?
Yeah.
So again, put into perspective for everybody, right? You're editing the audio, you're putting together the audio, you're producing it, you're reaching out to people and getting that done, you're scheduling everything. Like you are a one woman show almost, and you also have help as well. But for the most part, you're a one woman show putting this all together, and then you also have a schedule to abide by.
I do. Thankfully, we just brought in Iridian Firo, as I mentioned. She
Right.
helps with some of the social media. So she's our social media assistant. She'll, you know, proofread stuff and look at stuff and kind of bring ideas to my attention that would work for the brand. But other than her, I mean, it's just me. Thank God for Calendly because that saves me with, you know, people scheduling their stuff. And I really pride myself on being professional. So I really you know, want to make every experience that someone has with me one that they sit back and they're like, you know, she was so professional. She did this, she did that. So I really am a perfectionist when it comes to that because I want people to feel comfortable and feel like they have everything they need before they sit down and have a discussion with me for the podcast.
And to take it a step further, also, you know, like I said, you're editing the audio, you're putting together interviews, you're conducting the interviews, you're producing the content, and then you also are going to shows every now and then. You're also with these interviews, you also have to capture the same chemistry, right? You have to have that type of camaraderie with somebody to make the podcast, to make the episode work.
Right.
How is managing that when you're going from interview to interview and you don't really know exactly what you're going to get out of the next person, or you're doing panels with people that on a given day you don't really know what the energy is going to come in with. So how does that work?
Yeah, so in regards to a one-on-one interview, so when I think that I want to interview someone, I'll definitely like tune into them and kind of see what their energy is and, check their social media, see if they're a good fit for the brand, and then kind of approach it from there. I really like to make it known that this is for them. This is for them to spotlight what they do or what they enjoy. And then I've never had a point where someone has come in and I'm like, oh, their energy is off. Like maybe, maybe something is off. Everyone that I've interviewed has been very pleasant. They've been very professional and they've really been open to me and shared information with me that, has really made for great interviews. And I've really been fortunate enough to be friends with a lot of these people after the interview because we've had such a great connection. In regards to the panels, that's something that I take a step further. I really try and see who meshes well together before I do a panel. So, like for instance, the Stone Cold Steve Austin panel, I had Queen PR from those wrestling girls. I had Mimi Shells, I had Lovely Laveau, and I had Court Kim, and then myself. So I knew that Mimi, Lovely, and PR were very friendly with each other. So I figured that would be a good combination to have them involved because they already know each other. They already go back and forth on Twitter. They're already friends. Like it would be a great conversation.
Right.
Court Kim and I were already friends. So I knew that that would go well together. Since I was the moderator, I knew, okay, I'll probably take a step back with this one, kind of lead it a little bit, and then they'll be able to explore their viewpoints. Court Kim has a personality that meshes well with a lot of people. So I knew that she would work well with the three other ladies, and she did. And, she's been able to form connections with them after that interview because they meshed so well together.
Right.
I just like to make it so everyone is comfortable. They're able to express themselves in an appropriate manner. There's, no type of negative energy going into it or out of it. So I really just take the time to really see, okay, who would work well together, who wouldn't. And then I kind of go from there in terms of grouping it together. So everyone has a great experience.
No, yeah, and again, just the brilliance in that, like you breaking down exactly how we talk about panels and talk about just breaking down how you're able to put things together and how in your mind you're able to set things up. Like you're already forward thinking and say, okay, I know this person works together. Okay, I know they're good. I got to know this person that I'm familiar with. They're good. And they also are people person, so they may work with them too. Like, I just love how your creative goes, how you think and just how you're able to put these things together. And I I think that comes with you having the journalism background and having that ability to kind of not only have the technique to put those things together, but have the forward thinking of hey, I know this, I know this, I know they can work together. This is gonna work.
Definitely. I really do think my journalism background, as well as, the different employment opportunities that I've had, as well as the different shows that I've been on, I feel like that has really helped me to be a better podcaster and be able to group these people together so that they're able to have these great experiences and be able to share their thoughts freely within a podcast episode. So I definitely have to credit it to that.
Now, and you also, like you said before, you also brought in your friend, who is
Yes.
also going to be your assistant. Social, who you've already announced before is going to be assistant social media.
Yes.
Social media, Iridian, right?
Yes.
How did that friendship work? Because I know she's also does a podcast of her own, Wrestle Friends, as well.
Yeah, so she does Rest Friends. So um we actually just started being friends. She asked me to be on her show and I agreed. We did the episode and then we kind of started talking from there. And it's crazy because we have a lot in common. She works in radio. I used to work in radio. We went to school for the same things. We were both in college radio. She's very creative as well. She works in radio. She does all types of stuff. And um, I was just asking her stuff like back and forth, like, hey, what do you think about this for the Instagram? Or what do you think about this for the Twitter? And then I'm kind of like, do you just want to be on my team? Because I keep on asking you this stuff and, you're very creative. Like, how about I just bring you in and let's kind of just go from there? And, she was very excited about the opportunity. And it's been amazing to have her because she has great thoughts, and she thinks the stuff sometimes before I do, or I might think something sounds good and she's like, oh, maybe you shouldn't post that, or maybe wait on it. So it's great to have that second pair of eyes on my content to make sure that I'm in line with my brand identity and it's the best thing for Wrestling Winedown.
No, definitely. You could definitely, with the last episode that you did, you could definitely see the chemistry between you and where you can bounce. You have somebody you can bounce off ideas, and you know, okay, I know what she's gonna bring to the table. I know how she thinks, so this is gonna be great content.
Right.
You both had a great discussion, which I'm gonna talk to you about in a second with Cody Rhodes,
Yeah.
which I thought was interesting and give a different perspective. Also because you were there as well, but you have a different perspective what a lot of people have been talking about.
Right.
You know, so I think you guys work well together. I'm glad that she's with you and doing more content with you. Other than Chardonnay and Cheesemate, what else is she gonna be doing with Wrestling Winedown? Because you said before that there are other things that you have in the works. Can you say that right now, or?
Um, we will see.
I was trying to get that scoop out of there.
Yeah, we have a lot on the horizon. We have a rebrand coming up, which I'm really excited about. I talked about it recently with Stephanie Hardy when I was on her podcast, but when Wrestling Winedown started, it was me and my co-host, and we built that brand based on us. And now that it's me, I really want to incorporate more of my flair into it. So, the new logo, the new music that we're incorporating is something that is more of what I bring to the table rather than, me and my former co-host. So I'm really excited about that. And Iridium will definitely have a hand in making sure, the stuff that we're putting out there during that time, matches the new brand identity that we're going with. But, I'm very excited for that. Yeah, I mean, it's just an amazing time. I think, she came in at the perfect time. We've been friends for about 1.5 years, 2 years now. And I have to commend her. She is just very knowledgeable and she's great with video editing. And she just brings a lot to the table that really impresses me, not only as her friend, but as, a fellow podcaster, a fellow journalism professional. So, yeah, I don't really have anything too much more that I can say. I can't spill all the tea or the wine on here.
I know. I was wondering what I was going to get. I was trying to see if I was going to get some exclusive here, but I definitely appreciate it. And no, I think that she's talented. That's a given. But I definitely do like that she's going to be doing more stuff with Wrestling Winedown, and I do think that I love seeing you guys together and talking.
It's funny because when we went to Dallas for WrestleMania, there was a couple people that thought she was already a part of the show. We hadn't announced anything yet, and I remember she was like, should we tell them that I'm not a part of your show? And I was like, no, just go with it for right now. Right. But she's on so frequently that people think, oh, it's Iridian and Low, but it's literally just me. She will pop in every once in a while, for Chardonnay and Cheesemate and to do some of the social media stuff. But other than that, it's a one-woman show over here.
But how dope is that? Just take a step back and think about it for a second, right? So you can link up with somebody from another podcast. You can link up with somebody from this publication or this one from media, and you could collaborate together and produce something where the fans can get it, right? We're seeing, two female journalists being able to come on a platform and talk about wrestling, which you would think, 10, 20 years ago, that's almost unheard of or something that you wouldn't even imagine, but we see it today more and more often. How dope is that?
It's really amazing being a Black woman. She's a Mexican woman, two diverse women that have a lot in common. To be able to sit down and really just talk about wrestling is something that makes me proud. And other women that I've spoken to on my platform as well that I've been able to discuss stuff with, women of color. It makes me proud to look back and see oh my gosh, I talked to this person or I talked to that person and they brought so much to the table. And you're right, 15, 20 years ago, women were not podcasting about wrestling. No. And now it's been amazing to see all of the different women that are involved in the field, whether they are Black, white, Mexican, Asian, etc. We all have a platform and we're doing such incredible things. And it really shows that you don't have to be a man to talk about wrestling. You can be a woman and have so much knowledge and bring so much to the table and just do an amazing job at it.
Yeah, and but also it just take it a step further, right? So one of the things I bring up with past interviews that I've done with wrestling content creators and everything like that is just what the next generation sees, right? The next generation is going to see it as you and me, like again, like we said, women talking about wrestling, let alone people of color talking about wrestling, but women talking about wrestling is almost unheard of, especially on a platform like you do. But now that's becoming more and more common than it was maybe 10 years ago. Uh, you're also successful and you're also building a brand by yourself, which is incredible. But what makes my mind go is that for me and you that didn't have that, there's gonna be people that watch you now and watch what you do. Young females that's watching what you do and want to be journalists and want to talk about wrestling, but maybe was unsure about it. Now they have the confidence because you're doing it.
Yeah, it really is heartwarming. It's interesting. Stephanie Hardy said the same thing the other day too.
Oh,
In regards to that, she was like, how does it feel to know that, you're kind of being that type of person for like a young girl or a young guy who might not know if they want to do something in regards to like having a wrestling podcast. And I was kind of speechless. Like I had never been asked that question before. I was like,
yeah.
you kind of caught me off guard, but it really does mean a lot because growing up as a wrestling fan, I didn't have a woman to listen to talk about wrestling.
Right.
I watched SmackDown, I watched Raw. There wasn't a lot of female representation and backstage interviewers, commentators, journalists. And now the field has it all. And I'm very proud and fortunate to be one of them. And, I hope to continue doing this for, as long as I possibly can because I enjoy being able to be that voice. And I hope, one day maybe I'll inspire, a young Black girl to start her own podcast about wrestling because she saw me do it, or she saw Ridian do it, or she saw those wrestling girls do it. And she said, you know what, I'm just going to take that step. I see women that look like me, so I'm going to do it. I want to be that inspiration for a young girl because, like I said, I really didn't have that when it came to professional wrestling. I
Right.
had outside Black women that I really looked up to and I still look up to in regards to journalism, but now we're covering professional wrestling.
Right. Right. Definitely. And again, I just find it so interesting just how far we are coming along now. We still got a lot more to do, and hopefully, we're seeing young content creators getting deals. We're getting see people getting sponsorships, getting advertisement. Also, there should be a wine advertisement coming pretty soon for you guys as well. Let's get that going by end of 2022. But I find it so interesting and amazing about what you're doing and how that's going to lead to other people as well. And like you said, you hope. I think you will. I think with your talent and what you're doing, and I could the other men podcasters, other female podcasts. I think what you're doing is brilliant, and by the content you're putting out, the subject matter that you're doing, you stand by yourself almost in what you're doing right now. So I definitely think other female and other young adults are going to look at what you're doing and be inspired.
I really hope so. I really hope so.
Definitely, definitely. You also have another project you just started last month. You're doing a project, Life of a Wrestling Fan.
Yeah, so that is actually a series of episodes that we're doing. So, the life of a wrestling fan actually started with Andrea. She is an executive producer who's worked with Nickelodeon, MTV, VH1. I found her on Twitter, and I was really fascinated with her career because it's something that I wanted to do when I was growing up. I wanted an MTV show. Like I was dead set on having my own MTV show. And I told her this when I was talking to her, but I wanted to interview her and I saw she was a wrestling fan. And I was like, but I want to tie the two together. So I kind of sat back and I thought, and I was like, I said, there's probably a lot of wrestling fans out there who have amazing careers on the sidelines, whether it's, a wrestler or not a wrestler, it could be maybe a wrestler,
Yeah.
or executive producer or a teacher, or maybe worked at WWE before. And they're also a wrestling fan. So I created the concept specifically for Andrea, but I've been able to secure other people since then, that'll be coming soon, that are professional wrestling fans, but their careers are so diverse and so interesting that it's like two interesting things paired together that really make for a amazing listening experience. And she was so open, and I really enjoyed learning about her career, but also the fact that she's been able to incorporate her love of wrestling into her career.
Yeah, I love that because I didn't know who she was, but now that and again, it's the brilliance of what you do. Now because you introduced her and that you was able to open her up and have her explain how she got into wrestling and just that connection there. Now wrestling fans or people that didn't know uh, of her are now going to look her up and now see what she's doing and now follow her. And
Right.
you're almost a conduit to what you're the conduit between wrestling fans and people that aren't wrestling fans, and you're able to bring those worlds together, which I think is great.
It's amazing to see how many people are professional wrestling fans, and you really don't know from like the outside. The great thing about Andrea was that I saw her tweeting about wrestling. I can't remember if someone retweeted her or someone shared something, and I saw her and I was like, I've never seen this girl before. And I started going through and I'm seeing she works at MTV, she's done the Met Gala, she's going to the Nickelodeon Awards, and I'm like, wait a minute, she's in the journalism field.
Right.
Like, let me sit down and talk to her about her career, but also the fact that she's a full-on wrestling fan and has been for all of these years. And she's within our community, but she really hasn't had that spotlight on her yet as she
Right.
should, because there, like I said, there's so many amazing wrestling fans who are doing stuff offline that is great for the community or their career, and we don't know because we're not talking about it online. We're focused
Yeah.
on what's going on Raw or what's going on in AEW, that we're not sharing like, hey, I did this at work, and or I made this impact in my community, or I'm working at the Met Gala. Like, there's so many amazing things that wrestling fans are doing that needs to be brought to the forefront along with being a wrestling fan.
Definitely, and just I know this is not the same series, but you also interviewed Victor Perry not too long ago, right?
I did, yeah. So we had the opportunity to just discuss his whole wrestling club. Again, that was someone that I found on social media.
Right.
He got retweeted on my timeline, and I was like, wait a minute, I've never seen a wrestling club before. And I just saw
Yeah.
the interaction that he had with different people, young adults up to, adults in their 50s who were like, I wish I had a wrestling club at my school when I was growing up. And just seeing that um, generational thing in common really made me want to interview him even more, because he's had an impact on all these people. These people are seeing what he's doing for his students and the impact that he's making on their lives at such a young age, that I knew I just had to have him on my platform.
And again, it makes Victor Perry and it makes Adriana, right?
Yeah, Andrea. Yeah.
Andrea, sorry, Andrea. It makes me more relatable to them and kind of want to connect more to them and follow their journey, what they're doing. Now that I know, hey, they're wrestling fans. Oh, okay, what else they're gonna do? They're doing that. Oh, like again, you bring those two worlds together. And I think this project is a great idea. Again, you're so creative that you already had the foresight of putting this together. And I bet you have other big names that you are working on. Can you share anybody else, just one of who you have lined up?
So I actually have Mimi Shells on. She recently joined Black Wrestling as a writer, but she actually used to work at WWE.
Mm.
So she was a WWE fan while she worked at World Wrestling Entertainment in Connecticut, and we really broke down, her experience there. Now she's working at Black Wrestling, but she also now works at Meta. So
Mm.
she's still a wrestling fan within all of this, and I got to finally ask her the question of if WWE hires fans, because I've heard for so long that if you are a WWE fan, they will not hire you. And she
Mm.
got to the bottom of it and she explained it so eloquently. So that episode is coming soon. But I always enjoy talking to Mimi. Her energy and her enthusiasm to share is just it's very comforting, because she really has it's like an open book.
Right.
She doesn't hold back. She's very honest, and she just tells it how it is. I really enjoy talking to her.
And I'm definitely looking out for that. You don't have a date for it though yet, right?
I don't know.
I'm definitely gonna check. I'm definitely gonna tune in. I'm definitely gonna tune into it and hear it, because I definitely sounds interesting. I always wanted to know that as well, if they do hire wrestling fans. So that's definitely, if anything else, that is definitely something you're gonna pull from it, SEScoops fans, and definitely look into that.
Yes.
Now I want to ask you something, right? Before we go any further. You recently went to Hell in a Cell, right?
I did.
Right. And you have an interesting opinion about the Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins match that I don't think a lot of people have. So I'm interested in, well, A, how do you like the event? And B, what are your thoughts on the Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins match?
So I thought the event was interesting. I thought that the incorporation of only one SmackDown match was odd because they threw it in there at the last minute. I felt like either A, they should have just branded it as a Raw, branded pay-per-view, and everyone would have been fine with it. Or B, they should have added in more SmackDown superstars. I really enjoyed the women's match, but I wish it would have been in a cage. That's the only negative thing I have to say about that match. Everything else was just amazing. In regards to Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins, that match just was very cringy, in my opinion. It was really hard to sit there and watch it. When he took his jacket off, I screeched, and then there was silence within the whole venue. Like, no one said a word because everyone was like, is he really about to wrestle with his whole pec just red, black, and purple? And he did. And I honestly wish he would have just not even came out. I understand the point of him coming out because he feels like he has an obligation as being almost like the cover model for the event. You know, he's on the chairs, he's on the poster. I understand why he did it, but he didn't need to do it. I think at the end of the day, he really needed to focus on like his injury. You know, his injury is serious. He's obviously gotten surgery since then, so that's great. But I feel like he was trying to prove himself, and he really didn't need to. I feel like if he would have just put out a statement earlier in the day, or WWE would have put out a statement, we would have all been like, you know what, we understand he's injured. This is a good call. But for me, I almost wonder if it's going to lead to other wrestlers being like, well, Cody did it, so I'm going to do the same thing. And, you know, maybe the fans will respect me more. They'll view me a certain way because I went out there and wrestled with an injury and still won, or, you know, I just went out there in the first place. I just feel like it's unsafe, and it was a hard match to watch.
Yeah, that's interesting because you were actually there. So like we could sit behind the TV screen and talk about the match, but you were actually there with people that you know have different opinions and watched it live and had that reaction to it. So that's why I found that so interesting. I do say though, with regarding to wrestlers maybe emulating what Cody Rhodes did, I feel like that's all we've already seen that. We have a history of that. And like I think there's a deeper issue with why wrestlers wrestle through injuries and and feel like they have an obligation to do so. I think there's a deeper conversation within that.
Yeah, you know, I know wrestlers have injuries and they go out there and wrestle. I know Adam Cole has been wrestling with the injury and now he's kind of like stepped aside, but the fact that it was so like the imagery was there for Cody, right? Like you saw the bruises, you saw the injury. I think that's what made it worse for me because you can actually see that this man is injured, he's in pain, and he's still out here wrestling. Now with Adam Cole, it's like you really couldn't tell that he was injured. But with Cody, it's like you can't mistake that for anything but an injury. So for me, that's why I'm like, no, like I don't think that was the smartest thing. And I even asked Iridium when we went, I was like, how is he cleared to wrestle? And then he got on the mic after the match, after the whole pay-per-view went off air, and he's like, no one back there told me to come out here. It was my decision to come out here and wrestle. And I'm like, why?
Right. No, it definitely was shocking to say the least.
Yeah.
Of this, you hear about the injury, but then actually see the bruises that's on his, I think it's right pec, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so.
And just like how that looked. Granted, that match was great. That match was amazing, and the work that they did is commendable. But I also do see from your standpoint, maybe that didn't need to happen. Maybe that could have just an easy statement would. But I also understand as well. I understand the thought process of a Cody Rhodes where he's just now coming to the company. They have him on the poster, they have him on the chairs, like you said. And that was a make or break moment for him when you think about it, because had he not gone in and did the match, then what do they say? Does WWE take that away from him? Does WWE take a step back from pushing him? I think those are the type of conversations that could be had about why wrestlers do what they do when they are injured or not feeling well or not feeling like that they should be in there, but they do.
Right. It reminded me of the whole thing with Sasha Banks last year at SummerSlam when there was rumors going around that she wasn't going to compete against Bianca Belair in that rematch that everyone looked forward to. I was there as well.
Right.
And we didn't know until the match was about to happen that Sasha wasn't coming out. And
Right.
I felt like that should have been a moment of transparency. Like WWE did give us transparency here because they did tell us that he was injured.
Right.
Unlike the situation last June or July or August when they didn't tell us anything at all with Sasha, and we were all sitting there like, okay, so this isn't happening.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate them for being transparent, but I think the results of being transparent weren't exactly something that I agreed with. So I don't know. We'll see what happens in the future with how they handle people getting injured and how they, communicate with their fans, and if they take them out of the match or they have them go, but definitely dangerous all around.
Yeah, and I guess we're just going to wait and see just what the ramifications of what Cody Rhodes and WWE, how they handle that situation, just see what other wrestlers do and how far it will go. I do want to actually one last thing on topic though. Do you see Cody Rhodes coming back at Royal Rumble?
No, I see him coming back before. I think Cody is going, and I saw someone else say this yesterday. I think Cody is going to try his best to come back before, just to be like, they gave me this timeline, but I came back before. And I could be wrong. He might pull a John Cena and come back at Royal Rumble, because we have not really had a moment like John Cena coming back from his injury at the Royal Rumble since then. Right. And I think Cody is one of the main superstars who could do something like that, and they would get the reception that could be close or could be even better than John Cena based on his standing with the company so far with him returning back.
It's interesting that you said John Cena, because they had the similar injuries, and I believe John Cena, he was scheduled to be out for I think 6 months, 7 months, or however, and he came back in 4.
Yeah.
So that's the interesting thing about the Cody Rhodes situation is it going to be like John Cena coming back at the Royal Rumble and making the surprise, or is it going to be like John Cena and try to work himself to come back in 4 months? Like that's the interesting aspect of what we're going to see out of that situation. Hopefully it's time after he heals and gets better, so he doesn't re-injure himself again.
Exactly my thoughts.
So that's the big concern, and I do appreciate you being able to have that stance, because a lot of people, as soon as they seen it, they had the stance of, oh, how commendable that was and how great it was, which everybody's entitled to their opinions, and it is great to see that he did the match and able to have a great match at that. But there is long-term ramifications of that, no matter how you look at it. And I'm glad that you took that approach and gave that different opinion to where we can think about that, like when you do all the other stuff you do.
Yeah, it's interesting because when we were in the arena, no one around us had the same, like, why is he out here? Can he go to the back? Like, the people behind us must have thought they were at a GCW show, because they're like, bring out the tacks, bring out the glass. Like, they were into it. I'm like, this man should not even be out here. Like, please don't bring out any glass, nothing. Just finish the match as soon as possible. And I was surprised too by how long the match went, because I thought they would do maybe like 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, get him to work a little bit and then send him to the back, because they'd be scared that he'd get re-injured. They went for a long time.
They did.
And I'm just like, every time he would get hit or he would land weirdly, I would just be like, oh my God, is it over yet? Like, and I'm never like that in matches, but even death matches, even at GCW, I'm shocked, obviously, but I'm not like, he needs to go to the back. Like, please go take care of him. He's bleeding out. I'll still watch it. But like, for that, oh no, he needed to go to the back.
You're tougher than me, because whenever I see a death match, I'm like, I'm coming. Ooh. I seen I seen a match not too long ago. It was like I think it was like Hoodfoot and somebody else, and like
Was it during WrestleMania weekend?
I think so. I think so.
I might
And
have been there
yeah,
for that one.
yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I think it was the last one I seen was it's called Planet Death.
Yes, I
I think
was there.
you was there. So you was there.
Yes.
So you know how crazy it gets.
That was my first GCW show, and
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
I was warned. I was warned by Brittany Sacco. She's a cosplayer out here, and she had gone to a couple GCW shows before, and she had asked Iridian and I to go, and she was like, "Oh my god, it's so exciting, and there's violence." And we were kind of like, "Okay, we'll go. Like, we're here for the experience. We'll go." And we were just shocked, like
Right.
the whole time. And I went to my third GCW show 2 weeks ago, and I feel like I'm kind of getting a little bit better when they go into the glass or the tacks, but I'm still kind of like, oh my God, like this is really happening. I was sitting second row at GCW, and the glass was coming back towards us. So
Oh
I
my
think that's
God.
why I was like so scared, to the point where I was like, okay, should I have sat here? Or maybe I should have stood up. Like, I don't know how these performers do it. I give them all the flowers when it comes to death matches, because it could not be me.
It can't be anybody, really. It can't be anybody. I seen it was like Akira versus Cole Roderick, I think.
Oh yes.
Yeah. That was the match. And I'm seeing them put the glass tubes in their mouth. I'm seeing them cut themselves up. I'm seeing somebody do a pile driver on. I'm seeing all this stuff. And I'm in New York, so it's like 1:00 in the morning. I'm saying this is too late for me. This is too late to be watching this. What is going on?
Oh my gosh.
But you are way tougher than me to be able to watch that and able to sit through there with the glass coming in your face like it's 3D in the movie theaters. Like, that's incredible.
It's intense.
That's incredible. Definitely want to go to one though. Definitely want to go to one.
Just don't sit in the second row the first time you go, or the third row.
I'm sitting all the way in the back. I'm having people behind me, in front of me, just in case.
That's a good call.
Any other wrestling shows you're going to this year? You have any plans? Or SummerSlam?
No SummerSlam. I am kind of thinking about going to Money in the Bank. I haven't really been too impressed with the card so far. The only one that I'm really intrigued over is Bianca versus Rhea Ripley. That's one that I'm interested in. I want to hopefully see a return during the women's Money in the Bank of Bayley, but we don't know yet. So I haven't bought tickets. I am planning on going to Chicago for All Out. I know it hasn't been announced that it'll be in Chicago, but we're like 99% sure it will be. So I'll probably go to that. And then we'll see what else happens. There's some independent shows that come out to Vegas that I might go to. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of independent shows in Chicago for that weekend. So I'll probably go to some of those as well.
This is a good one. I think you attended as well. I think it was Tyler's Day Off. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that one was a really good one.
Yeah, that was a really good one. And I'm surprised. Honestly, somebody from Las Vegas, iffy about going to Money in the Bank show. Like that's your home. That's your home base. I'm surprised that you're little. We'll wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's not impressing me so far. And the fact that Roman is supposedly not going to be there, and Randy Orton's out, and it's just a lot of questionable things for me right now. And they moved it from the Allegiant Stadium to MGM Grand Arena. There's way less seating, so the tickets are extremely overpriced now. And I am one that I will wait until the day of to buy the tickets, because I know they'll drop. So that might just happen. I might just wait until the day of and decide to go. But I really am not sold with the card right now. I want to see those big matches that make Money in the Bank, and we'll see who we'll see who competes in the men's match as well. That might sell me too, but right now I'm kind of on the fence.
I mean, they have Austin Theory in the match. May win it.
I'm not a fan of him.
I was gonna see if he's gonna play it or not. Because I listened to you talk about Austin Theory, and I could tell if you just anytime Austin Theory's name comes up, you just ready to go.
Yeah. Like I said in the last episode, we know John Cena's coming back, and I hope he mops the floor with Austin Theory. I think a lot of people really do compare Austin Theory to a young John Cena who came out and got in Kurt Angle's face during the Ruthless Aggression era. And I mean, I can only see one thing in common with them, and that is that they're both white men, young white men. I can't see anything else. I think John Cena is one of those characters that you can try so hard to replicate John Cena, but you cannot do it. John Cena has had such a legendary career, whether you love him or you hate him. This man has done such a great job, and he has really become a household name because of the WWE. So, Austin Theory can try if he wants to be the next John Cena, but he's not a household name at this point. So you got to do better if you want to get there, even though my personal opinions are set aside for that.
In defense, a little bit. I mean, what is this going? Listen, in defense, right? They've always tried to find the next star after that star leaves, right? So they tried to find the next Stone Cold. They tried to find the next Rock. They've tried to find the next John Cena. Soon they'll try to find the next Roman Reigns.
Right.
You gotta give him a chance. You gotta give him a chance and see how he grows. We didn't think we're gonna find another person that can emulate Hulk Hogan, but then we found somebody that could have the same star potential. We gotta kind of wait and see how he matures and grows up. You're not having any of this. I'm seeing.
No, I think that the next big name is within NXT. I think it's either Braun Breaker or Carmelo Hayes. I mean, the stuff that they're doing right now, and they're just starting. I mean, I think that they have the star power to, be the next Roman Reigns or be the next John Cena. I think it's one of them. And you never know. It could be a woman. It could be Roxanne, who just got signed and she's doing big things already. So we'll just have to see. But personally, I do not think it's Austin. I think Carmelo or Braun are the two right now that would make me be like, where will they be at in 10 years? And I can see them at the top of the pinnacle of the WWE pinnacle, or, maybe AEW or another company. But they are two superstars that definitely have my attention at this point.
There could also be, Lash Legend or
yes,
or Nikita Lyons or
we know she has some heat lately.
I love just saying names that I know you don't like. Just see how your expression just changed.
I think nowadays, for me as a fan, it's really important to see the dialogue online and see how these superstars portray themselves outside of the ring. And I know a lot of the people trying to say, like, you take away or you can separate the talent from the individual, but there are some things that you can't. Right. And a lot of these superstars that I'm very iffy on or I'm not a fan of, that's the reason why. It's not because, they suck in the ring or, I hate their gimmick. No, it's something that has been peeped out online or they've said themselves or they've done where I'm like, I can't support that.
Right. And some people that was watching this may be, what are you talking about? Go watch, go look out, go do your Googles, go see what you're talking about, and then you can form your own opinion. Again, that's the brilliance of what you do and how great you are, is that you can actually think about those things and kind of explain as to why you may not be a fan of this person, and as to why you kind of need to probably do your research on this person more than just what they do in the ring. If they could do a nice somersault backflip with a twist,
Exactly.
I do appreciate that a lot from you. And again, you just create that dialogue and create that, let's talk about this. Let's not run. Let's talk about the situation and how we feel about it.
Right.
Before I let you go, I do want to ask you some quick questions, okay?
Okay.
Number one, what was the wrestling moment of memory that got you into wrestling?
Oh, I love telling this story. So I was 9 or 10. I was at my grandparents' house and I was flipping through the channels and I saw John Cena on the Spanish channel, and I was sold. I don't speak Spanish, so I really had to pay attention to what was going on. I couldn't understand what they were saying, and I think I watched a couple more times after that in Spanish, and then realized that they came on USA, and then I would just watch it on Monday nights just like everyone else. But John Cena was like that first person for me where I was like, what is this? And then I started seeing Melina, Victoria, Randy Orton, Edge, and I was like, wow, I really like this. But the first superstar was John Cena.
Was this like 05, 06?
No, it was I think it was either 8, 9, or 10.
Gotcha. Was this channel Univision or like?
I think it was Univision. It was
Univision.
channel 9 here.
Got you. You know why I say that is that was also like because like I didn't have cable. I didn't have cable, so I would go to my grandmother's house and like on Sundays, and
Yes.
every week, every
Yes.
Sunday, they'll have like a 2 hour block of just Raw. Because I don't have television, because I have cable at my house, I would go to my grandmother's house and watch the Spanish version, and it would come on like 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock to like 7 or 8, and I just catch up with all the Raws, everything happened on Raw, but it just be on Spanish, so I don't know what's happening.
You are literally the first person who has had a similar experience as me.
Oh,
Everyone else is like, you have? What happened? Did you find the English channel? Yes, I did.
No, it held me down. It held me down.
It did.
I didn't have cable and nothing like that. It held me down. I was able to follow everything. I learned a little bit of Spanish along the way. So it also gave me an educational lesson as well. And I think they also had like Heat back then on channel 2 at one point, and you get to watch all the pay-per-view stuff before it comes on, and you get to like, see we know what's going on. We get it. They don't understand. They can't experience that, but we experience that.
Yes. I wonder if it still comes on.
No, unfortunately, I think they shut that down.
Oh.
I think WWE said, nah, we're gonna shut that we're gonna shut that down. But again, good memories. Yes. On times that I didn't know what was going on, I gotta go to my school the next day and kind of like talk about it. I was able to talk about what happened on Raw, but also give them a little Spanish lesson as well. So what is your favorite wine?
Oh, that's a good one.
The fact that you're really thinking about this and like really going and like your Rolodex in your mind, just trying to figure out, okay, which one do I really like?
I really like fruity wines. I like a peach moscato. I love rosé, which is just like a frozen rosé. They blend it with rosé wine, strawberry ice, and I think they put something else in there. I love prosecco. Wow.
Prosecco I really also be a sponsorship.
Yes, I really don't have a favorite. Like I learned this from the ladies on Twinkle Toast LV. I've had them on for a couple episodes. I like to bring them in to do like my wine recommendations, wine education, because I'm no expert. I'm learning along with everyone else. Really? I love wine, but like I don't know everything, and I like to have women that they actually work in the wine industry, so they're able to tell me stuff that I might not know, like the history behind wine, where it's from, and they've met some of the people behind the wine too, so they're able to add that insight for me. But they always say, do not be afraid to try wines. I think a lot of people, when they go to the store, they just look at the bottle and they're like, oh, I love the label on that, I'll try it. Right. They don't actually look and do their research and think, okay, it has these notes in it, or it's this type of wine. And wines can also be paired with different foods, and that brings for an even more amazing experience when you pair it with the right dish. So, I don't know. I love a good mimosa too. A good one to pair prosecco with is lavender juice, which I had never had before until I went to San Diego recently, and amazing. So that's definitely like on the top of my list at this point, is like a really good mimosa with lavender in it.
I have a friend of mine that, again, I'm not a wine drinker, so I was actually going to go towards you, as I thought you was more the wine connoisseur. You probably mostly still are, because I don't know anything about wine. So I was going to ask you, like, Barefoot Wine, like, is that a good brand? Is that a good?
Barefoot Wine is very like, it's like a beginner wine. It's kind of like a Stella Rosa too. Like when you're just getting into wine and you don't really know what you like, they're more of the sweeter ones, and you probably will like it. So, if I'm just looking for something really fruity and fresh, I might try a Stella Rosa or I might try a Barefoot. Like they're both good. It's just they're not as they're kind of like beginner level, right? But you kind of go up the ladder, and there's stuff like at Total Wine that I've had. And who has really good wine is Post Malone. He has a really good rosé. And a lot of these celebrity collaborations are good as well. Like the Bella Twins have a really good wine brand. I haven't tried Carmela's yet. But honestly, it's just worth trying different stuff. Barefoot is good, but it's very like, it's like very beginner levels. So if you're just starting to get into wine, that would be a good one to try. But I would definitely try some of the celebrity collaboration ones because you would be surprised. Some of them are very good.
You just put me on game to something. I didn't know that Carmella or the Bella twins had a wine. I
Yeah.
just blew my mind.
Yeah. Bella Twins have Bonita Bonita wine. It's based out of Napa where they live. I tried it when I went to Bottle Rock last year and I met them as well, and that was pretty cool. Carmela's is called Cabo Cagna, which I think is like bad bitch in Spanish, not Spanish, bad bitch in Italian. Haven't had hers yet. She just redesigned the whole bottle. I think those are the only two that have wines on the roster or Hall of Fame roster. I know WWE tried their hand with like the Ultimate Warrior wine and Undertaker wine. I have not tried that. Yeah.
I could just think about the Ultimate Warrior wine or the Undertaker wine, just how appealing that may be to other people, and it doesn't sound that good.
They kind of look more like collector's items. Like if you're a huge Undertaker fan or a huge Ultimate Warrior fan, that would be something to add to your collection. I'm very apprehensive on trying it. When it came out, it was $100 a bottle, and I was like, "You've lost your mind." That's why I say it's a collector item.
Right.
But now they've marked it extremely down because no one's buying it. So I might try it just to say I did, but I don't have the highest hopes for it because I don't know who actually created the wine. I'm not sure which distributor they worked with to, bottle it, grow the grapes for it, all that stuff. I have no idea.
Would you ever try it on like a stream or would you ever try it for people?
I would.
Yeah.
I would. I think it would be hilarious because like I said, I have very low expectations because I mean, I don't know what it's supposed to taste like. I mean, I think it's just a red wine, but I would try it in front of the people. Maybe the people have tried it before. I honestly have not heard of anyone that has actually tried the wine, which is kind of alarming.
That is a little alarming. Yes, that is a little alarming. I would love to see that a lot. I would pay to see that actually. I'll pay to see that. If we could do a Venmo or we could do a Cash App, get this ball rolling, get some content going out there. Low tries the Undertaker and Ultimate Warrior wine. How does this go?
Oh dear. I would try it if the people want to see it.
Nobody knows. Listen, let's get the ball rolling. Let's get Patreon. Let's get something going.
Oh, yeah.
Get this wine tasting. That sounds like a good idea.
It does.
And I'll also take 10% of that as well. So, you know what I mean? Got a good little on the side. You know what I mean? And lastly, for Wrestling Winedown itself, what are your future plans? What do you have coming up in the year 2022?
So we do have a rebrand coming out. That should be coming out later this year. New logo, new intro, new outro music. But the show is still remaining the same format, everything like that. We still have some episodes of The Life of a Wrestling Fan coming out, and then just some of our regular interview episodes with different individuals, whether inside or outside of the ring. And then going to wrestling shows. We're trying to crack open this TikTok thing. So just trying new stuff and being able to provide content on all different types of platforms so that we're able to reach more wrestling fans, so that we're able to, build those connections and be able to communicate with people better.
No, definitely. And I brought it up, a Patreon possibly. That's something that maybe, everybody's doing Patreon now. Everybody's doing Patreon and putting out content and doing pretty well and being successful at it.
Yeah.
Is that something where you're like, okay, that's the next step? Maybe not let's say next month, but that's something that you're thinking about on the horizon.
Yeah, it's definitely crossed my mind. It's in the back of my head. I've thought about it. So I might, dive into the Patreon waters. Right now, I feel like my new venture is TikTok. So until I get that mastered, I probably won't jump over to Patreon.
Okay. All right. But hey, listen, I'm not ruling out the hope of trying to undertake our Ultimate Warrior one on TikTok. I think that will also be good too. Like whatever we can do to get this ball rolling, let's get that done.
We will get it done.
Let's get it done. Lo, I genuinely appreciate you for taking time and speaking to me. This has been a complete honor. And again, not only do I think that you are super creative, I think that what you're doing is going to have a lasting impact on the wrestling community because of the way you're able to talk about situations in wrestling, because of you spotlighting other creators, like what I'm kind of doing now, but you're able to spotlight a lot of creators and talk to them and bring the wrestling fan that may not know them and their fans and colliding together to make that beautiful blend. Um, I just think you're awesome. I think you're incredible.
Thank you. Thank you. And you're doing amazing work as well. I've really been keeping up with your different spotlights that you've been doing on the podcasters, and you've been doing an amazing job.
And to point this out as well, you were requested. Like when we put out the hey, who would you like to get to know? Your name came up.
Oh, that's
We
very nice.
you're somebody that, and I've also had you on the horizon as well. I was trying to figure out exactly when we was gonna do this. But you're somebody I've been looking at also for a while too. So um I'm happy to be able to actually have this time. I know it's like 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock right now in Las Vegas. You just got your day started. You still got to figure out what you're gonna do the rest of the day. But I genuinely appreciate you being able to sit with me and have this discussion. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. It's been an honor.
Signing off. My name is Tyree Simon from SEScoops here with Wrestling Winedowns. Low. Have a nice day, guys.